When freedom raised her glowing form on Mount Sorato's verdant height, she sat within a doom of a night, met lowering stars and thunder storms, the song of liberty, unceasing from the wicked war. Its banner shields of golden flame, she lifted in a proud name, and raised her people long forlorn to know their destiny. The Lone Star forever, the Lone Star forever, oh long may it soar over land and over seas, deserted and never, hold it forever, oh shout for the Lone Star banner.
Good afternoon. My name is Cyrus Gray. Welcome to Election Central. Good afternoon in the United States, Central Coast. Good afternoon on the East Coast. Good afternoon, good evening to those in Liberia and Europe, and good morning to those in Australia on the Asian Pacific continent. Today we're going to be rolling out our first edition of the show, Election Central. Shortly we will have a list of guests that will be joining us. Today there will be 3 segments in our show. The first segment is going to deal generally with the concept of elections in Liberia. So I'm going to lead on that for a few minutes, and then we'll bring in our first guest. In our intro in the last day or so, we've informed the public of these important guests. They are subject matter experts or resource persons on the things we're going to be discussing. So our first guest will be relevant to the discussion of Liberian history relative to elections. So let's pause for a minute and set the pace on some of the things we're going to be talking about today. Excuse me. We are a democracy. We've been around for close to 200 years. There are lots of doubts about whether, in fact, democracy has worked for us. So, because you look at the level of our development all these years, there's so much to be wanted. But we are a democracy. In fact, in 1847, we had our first elections. In September of 1847, we had our first election for president. And we had a referendum in our elections to determine how many representatives should be placed in our legislature for the 3 counties that were the part of our first republic. Now, mind you, the Republic of Liberia in 1847 was not the same as it is today in terms of size, in terms of political structure. At independence, there were only 3 counties: Montserrat County, Grand Bassa County, and Sino County. In fact, what was Montserrat County was much smaller than what we have today. So it was the settlements along the St. Paul River and the downtown Monrovia settlements. Then we have Bassa County, which was Bassa, Cove, and Edina. and then we had Sino County, which was basically Greenville. So in 1847, the Republic of Liberia did not include most of what we have today as counties, and it did not include the indigenous tribes. That is not to say that those territories and peoples were excluded from the Republic. These territories, they were settled. They had their own civil administrations ran by chieftaincy. For example, the Kondo Kingdom, headquartered in Bopolu, was far more advanced than the Monrovia settlement in the Republic of Liberia. There is a work by Benjamin J.K. Anderson in 1870 where he went on an expedition to Bopolu, and the story he tells about Bopolu is really amazing. There were even fish farming in Bopolu in 1870, taking the fish from the pond. So just to give you a context, so that we get away with this notion that we've always held that Liberia, the Republic of Liberia, was formed with the exclusion of the indigenous tribes. Having said that, there were elections for president every 2 years. So the first election was the contestants were Joseph Jingy Rabas and Samuel Benedict. Samuel Benedict, in fact, was the more popular candidate, but he lost the elections. The history shows that Benedict was a lawyer. So 2 years before independence in 1845, he defended a guy called Tobias Ogland, who had killed another Liberian by the name of Stephen James, roundabout. And because he defended this supposed murderer, and the guy was acquitted, the electorate were frustrated about him, and in the election, he lost the vote to Joseph Jingy Rabas. So every other year there were elections. Joseph Jingy Rabas ran for president for another 4 terms and won. In 1855, he ran for president against Stephen Allen Benson, who was his vice president, and he lost. So we had elections every 2 years. There were cases where presidents did not contest again; they resigned and retired after their term. But I'd like us to talk about a very important event and time before I bring on my guests. Because the idea of these discussions today in Election Central is to highlight the relevance of elections, that exercise in which the citizens choose their leaders. And when if not done properly, how it leads to anarchy. For most of us who are alive today, we know of our period when elections in 1985, the way it was handled led to anarchy and eventually led to a civil war. So we'll be having that discussion so that our first guest, will have some real life experience in these events. But I'd like to, before bringing him on, talk about an event in 1869. The elites who created the Republic of Liberia were generally in 2 types of people. There were those who were pure Negroes, and there were those who were sons of plantation owners. They were mixed race. Most of them were more white than black. For example, Joseph Jingy Rabas is described as an octoroon. An octoroon, from a race perspective, is somebody, a white person who is only 1/8 black. So he looks like a white person. If you look at our Constitution, when defining citizens, they start with the preamble that to be a citizen of Liberia, you have to be a Negro or of Negroid descent. It has always caught my attention why was it necessary for them to add of Negroid descent. Now, if you understand the configuration of the people who made up the leaders in Liberia at the time, then you understand why. Because if Joseph Jingy Rabas or Alfred F. Russell looked almost like white person, Apparently, they were suspicious that somewhere down the road, our descendants may be perceived as white people. So, in writing the Constitution, that qualifying clause for citizenship, they didn't say that you have to only be a Negro, but you have to be of Negro descent. So, even if you do not look like a black person, if you have a heritage that is black, then you begin to qualify to be a citizen of Liberia. So, the initial leadership were divided between these colors. And because they were divided, their very survival drove their concept of Liberia. For example, the light skinned guys did not believe that it was in their interest to include more natives into the republic. So they would rather come to the United States and get more free slaves to be a part of the republic rather than inculcating the tribal group. So they were vehemently opposed to that. And they had also a problem. They were they were easily prone to death by tropical diseases, so they were dying quicker than the darker skinned guys from malaria or from other tropical diseases. The dark skinned guys, on the other hand, and these light skinned guys, their patriarchal father was Joseph Jingerabos. Before him, Coslow Worry and Francis Donovan, those earlier rich guys, who many of whom did not go into the independence period. But Joseph Jingerabos was the leaders of this group. The other group, which were darker skinned, also educated and wealthy, headed by E.J. Raw, believed that, in fact, their concept was to create a United States of Africa to bring more people into the republic, more natives, more dark-skinned people. And naturally, that would have created more dominance among dark-skinned people that we have today, and maybe to the exclusion of the lighter-skinned people. So that internal rivalry and fights were there. E.J. Raw ran to be president for the first time in 1867, and he lost. And then he and the guys like him, Edward Wimmer and Alexander Cromwell and others, they conglomerated in Clay Ashland, and in 1869 created the True Whig Party. Prior to that, Joseph Jenkins Roberts' party, the key party of leadership was the Republican Party. So every now and then you hear people saying, oh, the Tory party has ruled our country for 133 years. That is not totally true, because the Tory party was formed in 1869. If you know that independence was 1847, then there was a sizable number of years before the Tory party was formed. But the Tory party, after being formed, fielded E.J. Raw in the elections of 1869. And he won the elections. But in that election was also a referendum. The referendum was to increase the presidential term from 2 years to 4 years. Having won the election, it appears as though the Republican Party that lost the election, who were dominant in the legislature, did not want this new dark-skinned guy to be president for 4 years. So a controversy arose. E.J. Raw said he won the referendum. The legislature said he did not win the referendum. This is an important period in Liberian history, and the things that happened then actually shaped the thinking and the process of government for several years. I believe even up till today, it impacted what we have today as a government. But E.J. Raw becomes president. And what did he do? The first thing he does is he sent his Treasury Secretary, who later become Speaker of the House, called William Spencer Anderson. The record shows that Spencer Anderson was the wealthiest Liberian at the time, into the sugarcane business, exporting sugar and cane. And E.J. Raw was also wealthy, but they set out to expand the territory into the interior, and they reached as far as territory in the Guinean forest region called Musudugu, along the Niger River. In fact, there are some conflicting analysis about where Musudugu really is. It is said that in fact it is in Burkina Faso. But they reached way out there, extended the borders through treaties with tribal chiefs, and created a bigger Liberia. In fact, Anderson brought back with him the son of one of the chiefs to go to school in Monrovia. But this expensive expedition cost money. So they went to the legislature and asked for the legislature to give them the permission to take a loan. I know you've heard about this Liberian $500,000 loan. It was the first loan authorized by the government of Liberia that they should borrow no more than $500,000 to carry on this expedition into the interior and extend the territory. So E.J. Raw appointed a team headed by Spencer Anderson, and then include John Lewis and a lawyer, a New York lawyer who had immigrated to Liberia many years earlier by the name of Henry William Johnson. So these three guys went to London to negotiate the loan. Now we all know that the terms of the loan were bad. They got less money for the loan. They had an overburdened commitment. But while this is happening, the government reached a consensus on the issue of term limits. That look, since we do not agree on the referendum of 1869, in 1870 they decided to have another referendum on the same issue of term limits because E.J. Raw believes he has 4 years. The other guys believe he has only 2 years. So that referendum was conducted in 1870. Now, E.J. Raw, fearing that the legislature, mind you, the legislature at the time was like what we have as the Elections Commission today. They oversaw the voting and counted the votes. So E.J. Raw, fearing that the Elections Commission may manipulate the vote, appointed a committee to count the vote. Almost similar to what happened in 1985 when Doe decided to appoint a committee. So this committee counted the vote and said whether the referendum for term limit increase was approved. Well, the legislature met in session and decided that they will nullify that voting because the language they used was that the votes were counted by an illegitimate officer. So in 1870, we still have the impasse. Joseph Jingin Roberts and the guys who are in his camp believe E.J. Raw, you have only 2 years. E.J. Raw believes he has 4 years. So if E.J. Raw has 2 years, that means there should be elections in 1871 for the president who's going to take over in 1872. So they put into play the process of having an election at the disapproval of the sitting president. So they had an election. Joseph Jingin Roberts ran in that election uncontested. He won the election and he left the country. So in October, I think it's October 26 of 1871, a mob gathered under the influence of the same Republican group, went to the home of E.J. Raw, the president, and they unseated the president by force. In that exercise, many people were killed. In fact, one of the prominent person that was killed was the Postmaster General by the name of Samuel Finley. Many of E.J. Raw's friends and the supporters and Truey Party hierarchy ran away from the country. One example was Edward Wilmer Bladden ran into Sierra Leone. E.J. Raw was arrested and imprisoned. And a 3-man executive committee assumed leadership of the country on October 26, 1871. Mind you, even if the argument was that E.J. Raw had only 2 years in his term, that 2 years had not lapsed yet. That 2 years would have ended in January of 1872. So he was removed before those 2 years. Now, if the question was loan, which we've been told in our time, that was really not on the table because that team that went to negotiate for the loan was still in London. They had not come back to Liberia yet. Howbeit, 3 persons now are leaders of Liberia. I think one was Charles Burgess Dunbar. The other guy was Amos Herring, who was also a signatory to the Declaration of Independence. And the other guy was Reginald Sherman. But in short order, they realized that by assuming power, they were in violation of the Constitution. So on November 4th, they swore in the office E.J. Raw's vice president. James Scriven Smith. Well, how do we know that? We know that because in the records of the State of the Nation address of the presidents of Liberia, I think it's December 4th or December 14, 1871, James Scriven Smith presents that speech to the legislature. It's an important speech because if you read that speech, it gives a landscape of what was happening at the time. In fact, he questioned the removal of E.J. Raw and asking them who, if E.J. Raw committed any wrongs or what are the codes for. This is a quote I take from that speech. Howbeit, he ended E.J. Raw's term and turned over to Joseph Jingin Ravers in January of 1872. Joseph Jingin Ravers would serve 2 terms and then he died in 1876. In next edition, we will continue these election processes so that we talk about different elections and what ensued. But from 1847 to the last election before the death of Joseph Jingin Ravers, who was replaced by Stephen Allen Benson, there were 16 presidential elections held. Before I bring my guests, I will leave us with this one thing that we should ponder. What became of E.J. Raw? So when Joseph Jingin Ravers becomes president in January 1872, E.J. Raw is still in prison. Somewhere in 1872, E.J. Raw dies under mysterious circumstances. There are accounts that he broke jail and he tried to swim to a British ship and he got drowned. In fact, we are told that he got drowned because the loan money was in his pocket and was heavy and it took him under the water. There are also accounts from the U.S. Consul General who was in Liberia that in fact E.J. Raw was killed. But we as a country have not come around to even lay bare the issues of our history so that we can understand why things are the way they are because they were shaped by things that happened before. William Spencer Anderson, who led the group to take the loan, returned to Liberia. He was arrested and he was tried. John Lewis, who was one of those on the committee, was also arrested, but he was released by Joseph Jingin Ravers. Reason is simple. John Lewis and Joseph Jingin Ravers were both married to 2 sisters, the daughters of Coslow Warren. Very wealthy Liberian. He had died at the time. So Jean and Susanna Lewis, who in our history participated in doing the flag. Susanna was married to John Lewis. Jane was married to Ravers. I feel through family connection, they took him out of that problem. Henry Johnson, who was the other guy, the lawyer from New York, who was Attorney General for E.J. Raw, he was also in prison, but under pressure from Americans, especially his daughter, who was advocating in New York, he was released. So he moved to Clay Ashland and settled down. But one of his quotes was that, hey, he would just do his law practice and make his farm and forget about the problems that were happening in Liberia. He eventually was shot and killed by his wife, Hester Simpson, over argument. He had asked her to leave the house in Clay Ashland because he believed that she was involved in some form of infidelity. So he also died. William Spencer Anderson, the key guy who led the loan, was tried and acquitted. The court found that there was no case of holding him for the loan. There was no issue. As he left the courthouse in 1872, another opponent of the E.J. Raw group, called Jesse Sharp, shot and killed William Spencer Anderson right before the courthouse after he walked out of the court. But these are very, 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 very tragic events and very important to our history that have not been taught in our schools other than individuals researching them. But they all help to shape our history and they all surround elections and choosing our leaders. So I like to bring in our first guest. I will bring him in and I'll ask him to say a little bit about himself, except to say that he is a major element of Liberian history. Sometime in 1982, if I'm not sure, if I'm not making a mistake, he along with some others student leaders were arrested. Why were they arrested? Dr. Sawyer and Dr. George Kerr had been arrested and in prison, and the students at the university demonstrated asking the government to release these professors. And I think the government accused them of violating Decree number 88A, which at the time made it illegal for students to be involved in politics, among other things. They were sentenced to death. There was a hush in the country. There were lots of pressure from the people. And eventually, Samuel Doe gave that infamous executive clemency speech. So, without much ado, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to bring to the forum our illustrious son, Ezekiel Pajibo. He's going to be joining us from Johannesburg, South Africa. Ezekiel, welcome. Let's run a technical test. I'll say something and let me see if I can hear you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I can hear you, but you're a little low, Ezekiel.
Okay, I don't know what to do. You know, we have load shedding here. In other words, we ain't get LEC.
Yeah, but Kerry, can you take that volume? Can you take the volume up a little bit?
You know, even when you were talking, we had a number of difficulties. There's been break-in because of the power problem. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you, but I would like to hear you more.
Yeah.
Can can you pump up your volume?
Going on. It's at the highest. Yeah, it's all at the highest, but I think it's the electricity problem.
Ezekiel,
That's yeah.
Ezekiel, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear
I
you.
I cannot hear you. I'm hearing you very low. I think you can turn your volume up a little bit. I will mute mine.
Yeah, so maybe if you mute yours, you will hear me because I'm at the highest volume. Can you hear me now? Are you able to hear me? Just put your finger up if you can hear me. Okay. Yeah. Uh, from my perspective, all of the elections that you were speaking about did not involve the majority of Liberians in Liberia at the time. Because the constitutional order that was in place.
Well, I will hold Ezekiel a little bit, so we can work on the audio. I uh, I can see that he's a little too low. Ezekiel, if you can hear me, just put up your hand. Okay. What I'm going to say to you, Ezekiel, is that you need to check your audio. You are very, very low. So you are sounding, but you are not audible. Let's try again. Okay, my brother. Let's go on again. Let's see what happens.
Okay, can you hear me? Hello, hello, hello.
Is it me?
I don't know, but you know, hello, hello, hello. Can you hear me? Hello, hello. Is that better?
Yeah, Ezekiel, if you can hear me, go ahead with your intro. I will try to work on the stuff on this side, figure out why is it low. You can hear me, right? Go
What
ahead.
I see initially is that the history is important to understand and to appreciate, but at the same time, we need to recognize the fact that the Liberian state at the time where the elections were happening, almost all indigenous people in Liberia didn't have the right to vote. So the those voting process that you were describing did not actually reflect the democratic nature of our state, largely because to vote at that time you had to own real property value. That was the 1846 constitution. So most of our people were disenfranchised. So you had vote that were taking place among only the ruling elite. Therefore, in my view, one cannot say that those votes were credible and needed to be respected. Because if you have a state where the vast majority of the people are not participating in those votes, how can you claim that those votes have legitimacy? It's a fundamental problem. And that was why, fast forward, one person, one vote became important in the late 70s and the early 80s. And the one person, one vote became the major issue when Dr. Amos Sawyer was running to be the mayor of Monrovia while the Tree Party government was in power. So it's important that we understand these histories, that we appreciate them, but we also got to understand the fact that the majority of our people were not even qualified to vote. They didn't even vote. They were not allowed to vote. So we need to appreciate the fact that this was largely a contestation among what some have called the Ragtime Boys, the people in Monrovia, Mama Point, up towards Capitol Hill. It didn't go beyond that. So we shouldn't make this to appear that there was a national consensus about this vote and that the vast majority of our people participated in these endeavors. They did not. And that's the fundamental problem with our country, is that we excluded so many people from the processes. In Liberia, we did not have one person, one vote until the 1986 constitution was elaborated. Therefore, my proposition is this, that prior to the 1986 constitution in Liberia, all the votes in Liberia did not serve the best interest of Liberian people, largely because they were excluded from the process.
Ezekiel, go ahead. I'm doing some house cleaning.
Yeah, but I've said what I wanted to say, and if you didn't get it, and it's unfortunate, I can't keep repeating myself. It could be that we are using an app that probably doesn't work very well in Africa. I don't know why we didn't use Zoom or
Kalkıran, Varney go. Kalkıran, Varney go. Kalkıran.
Ezekiel, I'll be with you in another 30 seconds, okay? I hear what you're saying. The fact of the matter is we're really not getting you very clear. And I'm trying to solve that problem. We have Tennessee Freeman, the other guest is here, so we're going to go between the two of you and see whether the problem is on your side or we have an audio problem on my side. So just give me a second.
Okay, no problem. I think the problem is on my side.
Yeah, so I like to. Ezekiel, um, it appears that you have an audio problem. So give me a second. We'll find out. I'm going to bring in Tennessee Freeman. Tennessee last job was the head of elections, education and elections commission. Sometime down the road, we're going to bring the chief of communication from the elections commission in Liberia so we can look at what's happening now. What are the cause of the delays in the schedule? Are they able to meet up with the timetable? But since we have Tennessee already in the back of the studio, I'd like him to join us in this discussion. But in the process, then we can find out what the audio problem. If it's on your side, I don't know how late they said that. We have to give you a few seconds to see if we can make some adjustments. But so let me bring in Tennessee. Tennessee, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing you very loud and clear. Are you hearing me?
So Ezekiel, look at the problem on your side because we can hear Tennessee loud and clear. So welcome, Tennessee. While we're at it, Ezekiel, let me give you if you got a buck or earpiece or something, or maybe check over there on your volume on the computer. Something is low. You're coming, but you're coming low. And to tell you the truth, I don't want us to miss this rich content that you bring to us from your experience and coming from Joe Burr. So I would suggest you take up a few seconds and see, maybe reboot that system and see if we can get on top of the volume. But ladies and gentlemen, I'd like in the meantime to bring in Tennessee Freeman, and I gave Tennessee an opportunity to say something about himself. He has moved to the United States where he's settled now. He used to be one of the officials at the Elections Commission. So I'll pass the ball to you, Tennessee, so you can introduce yourself, and then we can get into some of these topics.
Well, thank you, Cyrus. It is a privilege to be on the maiden edition of your program to discuss, as I used to say, election matter. My name is Tennessee Chiso Freeman. I have almost 2 decades of professional work experience working in elections, democracy, and governing processes, specifically with a focus on elections. I started off with the International Foundation for Electoral System as a program officer, senior program officer, and eventually program manager. Work with colleagues and international counterparts in the conduct of the 2005 and the 2011 elections. We spearheaded $18.5 million electoral support project through USAID in 2005 and another one in 2011. Eventually, over time, I switched over to the National Elections Commission, where I was appointed after a rigorous recruitment process and became the Director for Civic and Voter Education. And I served as the Director of Civic and Voter Education during the processes that led to the 2017 elections. And then consequently, just before my departure from the NEC, before I relocated to the US, I served as the Director for Monitoring and Evaluation. So I can say with full confidence that I understand elections and electoral processes. I know what's currently obtaining at the NEC in terms of what the issues are. Though I'm not there physically, but I think I can contribute in my own small way to the dialogue as we move toward credible elections in October. And feel free to engage me in whatever way you think I can, so that I can also bring sense to the discourse. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Hello? Hello?
Senator, I'm right here. I'm trying to troubleshoot.
Okay. So after I got lost.
You really got tired introducing yourself?
No, I didn't get tired. I thought I got lost.
No. Well, welcome. I'm glad that you can join us and bring some content to this discussion about elections. So while we try to get Pajibo in there, also wait for the Chief of Communications from the Elections Commission in Liberia, your friend Henry Flumo. I'd probably like to pick your brain. As we approach election in time like this, what are the normal things, normal activities that the Elections Commission officials like you, when you were in your last capacity, what is it that you do relative to civic education? We all know that the notion in Liberia is that our voting is a low information population, and people may not even be informed about civic issues. So you've been ahead of that for a while, Elections Commission. What will be happening at this time going to elections?
Well, as we are few days to the start of the biometric voter registration, I know on the NEC calendar, they have started. They did the launch of the civic and voter education campaign, and they are going through massive preparation to get citizens to understand the importance of the biometric voter registration and how they can participate. Because the biometric voter registration is a new technology that is being used by the NEC. I'm sure that they are doing everything they can to ensure that there is maximum public outreach of the process, so that people will know, for example, the time that particular segments of the country will be registering, where they need to go to register, what are the requirements for registration, and things like those. Also, it is my understanding that it is part of the NEC overview to visualize the process. That is by printing what they call information and educational paraphernalia, like flyers, banners, leaflets, and a lot of other visual aids to help citizens to understand and have a vivid understanding of what is required of them. Okay, like for example, I read sometime about 2 weeks ago, even and that necessitated the calling of the commissioners, especially the chair, to the Capitol to ask. There was some rumor in the air that you needed to get a voter's ID card as the only prerequisite
But
to
you know
be
what?
eligible. Okay, and she went and she was very categorical to indicate that that was one of the different requirements. All right, it wasn't the sole requirement; it was just one of the several different requirements. So, civic education and voters education is one of the perfect means by which citizens not only understand the processes leading towards the different phases of the elections, but it's also a means of helping to mitigate controversies, especially issues that come about because of misinformation by unscrupulous individuals who want to derail the process. So
So Sanusi, let me ask one question though. I mean, you just give an illustration about David Brown going to the legislature to clear the rumor that we all heard that to vote you got to have a voter's ID. What that seemed to suggest to me is that there is not a voters education uh, program that is reaching the people enough for them to understand that. If she had to go to the legislature to clear that air. What exactly? What exactly is it? Is it a radio stations they use? Yeah.
okay, let me use this medium to say that I'm not here as a spokesperson of the NEC.
Good. I know that.
Yes, one. Two, I have very limited information regarding the current operational or processes of the current electoral commission. But based on my own experience and what I'm able to gather through the news media, I will provide the information based on my capacity. So what I'm saying is that um, there is still a lot that needs to be done in terms of providing adequate, timely information to citizens about the voter registration process. But what I'm saying is that it's important that as they go along the way, there will be instances where misinformation and other issues will come up. It is important that they are on top of it in terms of providing clear and factual information as to some of the distortions that is going to come up. So that's what I'm saying. So I still don't think that the NEC is where it should be in terms of providing the kind of information to the voters about voter readiness in terms of participating in the biometric voter registration. That's why the process is on. Okay, so that's why the process is on, and I know there are several ways in which I know the NEC is engaging, and Henry Flomo will be able to provide more light. All right, through the print media, through the electronic media, through face-to-face discussion, using different shades of focus group discussion, town hall forums, or community engagement from house to house and what have you. These are all different methods that we used in the past, and we know the NEC continue to use. The only thing I would say is that in the face of dwindling support to the entire election process because of competing financial priorities by the government and international partners, that may be a real challenge. Okay, as opposed to the past when donors actually came in when there were gaps in election funding to support especially areas of civic and voter education. So, but I know the NEC has the capacity. The current guy who are the directors and others, and the few staff of the NEC in the different electoral districts, in the different magisterial areas, are very competent people. Okay, what they need now is the kind of resources necessary to ensure that they continuously carry on the kind of awareness necessary to ensure that people are fully prepared, so that when the process starts on day one, people will know what they need to do, and it won't be like a situation of people are not aware of the process.
Okay, okay, Senator, and I note your disclaimer that you are not the Elections Commission now, and you do not speak for them. I appreciate that. We make that clear. So as we wait for Henry Flomo to come, I'd like us to go back to Ezekiel to see if his audio is better, because one of the things that Ezekiel has joined us for is to talk about the impact on the country because of irregularities that surround stuff like election, bringing in his own experience in the 80s, and that's why I really treasure his being here. So Ezekiel, let's try again. Are you? Is it better down there now in South Africa?
Yeah, it's getting better. I think Sinesio has that magic touch.
Let's do let Senesi, can you hear Ezekiel clearly?
Not very clearly. I'm trying to hear him, but
So
it's still
so
simple.
so Zeke, what are you using your computer? Why if you try coming in using why have you why have you tried coming in using your phone, your smartphone?
That's why I'm using my smartphone.
Yeah, why have you tried using your smartphone?
Okay, let me see. Okay,
Yeah.
let me try that.
Let him log through his phone. I think it will be better, I guess.
Yeah, get to the link to your phone. I think something that computer mad at you. Something happening.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, but honestly, we all really hope that this process is a little scary because the way things are unfolding, the information coming in the press, funding issues here and there. I mean, from outside, the limited information, the issue of people raising credibility issue, procurement issues. You know that more than 5 years ago, we ran Election Central, and this was one of the concerns that we had, and we created that platform so that people can be aware, people could get visibility on what's happening because elections are not only supposed to be free and fair, they are supposed to be also perceived to be free and fair. And considering where we are right now as a country and the contest that we're going to be joined in October, is important that people get good information about what's happening, so they come out of there knowing that they were part of a fair system, even if they lost the election. That's why Election Central, as we've started now, is going to be important. We're going to be tapping, all of our expertise. So you, Senesi, while we wait for Ezekiel to get on his phone, at this time of the year, election year, while you were in charge at the NEC, what actual activities will you be doing? Say if you involve in civic education, how are you communicating the information to the public?
I mean, so like I indicated, there will be several multiple approaches, okay, to the processes. So one of the first things that is like technically the NEC now have passed the planning stage. All right. So when I say the planning stage, that is where the design of civic and voter education materials, especially visual aids, reaching out to media institutions and radio stations with jingles in the different vernacular as well as in simple English to the voting populace, the recruitment of civic and voter educators, gender mobilizers, the procurement of civil society organizations to assist the NEC in the provision of civic and voter education in the different electoral districts through the NEC 19 magisterial offices. Those are all preparatory things that should have been completed by now, and they will only be in the implementations phase. And that implementation phase, like I told you, is going to cater to different facets of the process. All right. So civil educators are deployed, jingles are playing on the radio stations. I mean, overwhelmingly in the local, and then the NEC through key individuals in the training section, the operations section, civic and voter education section will also be moving to different radio stations. All right. Also, to keep people apprised with some of the critical issues and things that is unfolding at the NEC. All right. So, because the NEC as an institution cannot fully carry on civic and voter education because they have their own limitations financially, personnel-wise, and what have you. So they must also use the general populace through community-based organizations, church-based, faith-based organizations of the physically challenged. Different aspects of civil society must also be incorporated into this phase, so that everybody can be on board. Even using traditional and local county authorities to also be part of this process. All right, and at the same time engaging educational institutions, universities, high schools, and what have you. Especially since these elections will also incorporate first-time voters who are at the tertiary and at the secondary school levels. It's important that these individuals also are motivated to first understand the importance of participating in these elections, and also what are the basic criteria that must be met by them, so that before they go to end of the voter registration centers during the process when voter registration will be in their communities. Okay, so those are the things that must be happening. I'm not on the ground. I barely listen to issues coming out of Liberia in terms of different radio stations. But I hope those things are happening. If they're not, then there's a cause for concern. But it is important that those things really happen. And with the support of the international partners, I know the support have dwindled over time. But it's important also that these things be at the front burner to ensure that the elections process is deemed credible and transparent. And like you indicated, that public perception of the process is something that will aid to its credibility. So when people do not perceive the different activities as being or credible or as being transparent or as being accommodating to all stakeholders, then that's also an issue for concern.
Okay, so surely we will be getting Henry to come on to us. We haven't gotten a signal yet. So as soon as we can get a signal, we get Henry so we can get some real-time information of what's happening on the ground. We're also waiting for Ezekiel to come in to us through his phone or another medium, and as soon we know that, we'll put him on. But I wanted to go back to 2017 because you were there at the time.
Yeah.
When at the end of the first round of the elections, when Councillor Bromskin contested the results up to the Supreme Court came up with a ruling that there were not grounds to nullify the elections, but that the voters' roll needed to be clean. Right? It would be good as a form of official election. What do you think the Elections Commission understood that to me at the time? And to the extent that you stay in Liberia for how long before you came back to the States after that? What measures you think were put into place to clean the voters' roll? And I'm asking, just from a preemptive standpoint, is there a chance that we should still have that problem with voters' roll, especially when we're talking about voters' registration through biometrics?
Well, the first thing I would say is that yes, the NEC made tremendous progress in the cleansing of the voters' roll through the assistance of UNDP technical assistance, through ECOWAS, and what have you.
So, okay, but what do you mean by cleaning the voters' roll?
Well, the NEC even intimated that there were issues with duplicates, and that
I
Duplicates
mean,
mean
people are registered more than once.
yes, but those people were expunged from the roll. Okay, but most of the parties who felt aggrieved and went to the Supreme Court and still were of the view that wasn't adequately addressed. So the thing is, the NEC through its technical processes got parties more involved in the process that led to the cleansing of the road. And I think what happened, and because that happened, that's why the NEC have been able to have multiple by-elections, including the most recent midterm senatorial elections. Okay, that's the same rule that was used, but for the purpose of the 20 of these elections that was to be held, the NEC is going to have a new rule. All right, the biometric voter registration is going to produce a new voters roll. That is something that citizens need to understand. So the issue about the issues that, for example, parties have with the rule that was used up to now will be of no effect, because the NEC is going to produce a brand new voter roll at the end of this biometric voter registration exercise.
There are some who've argued that with the National ID Registry that was funded by government, a whole institution exists for it. Doesn't it make sense for NEC to just pick up people information from the National Voters ID Registry based on eligibility instead of doing a whole new registration of people physically appearing?
Ideally, that was the intent of, amongst other things, the purpose for initiating the National Identification Registry. That part of the mandate were to ensure that all citizens, all Liberians, from birth to the oldest person who have been issued a biometric biometric identification card. And then what the NEC would have done was to collaborate with the NRR and extract from the NRR database all those who were 18 years and above. Okay, all those who were 18 years and above, and put them into another separate database. And then what would have happened was that the NEC will have had a voter registration process that would not even have been a biometric voter registration process. It would have been only a process to just, because the thing is, elections is all right, but it is not, it is a right, it is a responsibility of citizens, but it is not mandatory. It is not something that if you don't vote, it's a crime or it's a penalty. So the only thing the NEC had done was extract from 18 years and above, put it into their own database to ensure integrity of the process. And then what they have done was a form of what they call, after you do the voter registration, then you do the placement of the voters roll in places for people to come for the exhibition. So what the NEC will have done will have been an exhibition of all those who were on the voters roll and all those who were in the National Identification Registry database. And say, for example, I, Senator Freeman, live rehab, and I went to the National Identification Registry. I said I live rehab. I live around Kennedy High School. Obviously, if that is where I say I live, so if the NEC put a voter registration center at Kennedy, it's expected that because that is where I say I live, so that is where I will go to confirm, all right, my name on NEC exhibition rule. And then what next we have done that after that process, we have just taken it now and say based on the exhibition of the total number of people who came to and had an express interest in the process, these are the eligible voters because they have gone through the exhibition and have confirmed the desire to participate. Unfortunately, from what I know, there have been less than I think 25 or so % of the population of Liberia that have gone through the voter registry, that have gone through the biometric identification process.
You mean the national registry?
The national registry. So it is still fully underutilized, and have not been able to capture a significant proportion of the population. So the NEC again has to revert to doing their own process by using biometric voter registration, which is the current policy framework that have been agreed to use instead of using the optical mark recognition or the OMRO process that have been used for a while ago.
So I know you are not at NEC right now, but it would be good with your experience to discuss some of these things that attract public concern. One of them is the adjudicating elections conflict, right? Mm-hmm. Under the existing laws, you have a grievance committee at the Elections Commission. So if somebody were to participate in the election and they said that, okay, the process, I believe, is fraudulent, like Councillor Bromskin raised, that people had extra ballots in Grand Jide and other places. What is the efficacy of putting that complaint before a grievance committee in the Elections Commission? Because the notion is that if the Elections Commission complaint that this party is bringing, does it make sense to bring that complaint to yourself? There are some who are advocating for the establishment of a completely separate and independent court to hear that. Based on your experience in the Elections Commission, is there any reason to be concerned that this grievance committee with in-house in the Elections Commission is not able to handle this?
Okay, so let me answer this question by looking at the historicity of the hearing office. The hearing office came to being as a result of the fact that there are problems in elections, and there are issues in elections. Okay, from election irregularities to that all malfeasance as a result of at times unscrupulous individuals that are recruited to work as polling staff and what have you, that create a lot of embarrassment for the NEC at the polling staff level. So when those grievances are brought to the NEC has this internal mechanism in which through its hearing office have several layers to adjudicate it, and then before it goes to the board of commissioners as the final arbiter. And then after that, if the party feel aggrieved with the decision reached by the board, then they take an appeal to the Supreme Court. Now, what the NEC have done over time is that at the end of every major elections, the NEC have what they call a review process, all right? What they call the lessons learned process of elections. And all of the different lessons learned processes that have been initiated by the NEC with the support of international partners and that involve political parties, that have involved civil society, and have involved the general populace. One thing that has become glaring is that all of them have said that there was a need for the NEC to extract the adjudication process of election complaints from the NEC to an independent separate body. I don't know what's the status of the current amendments to the election law, but I think there is a provision that calls for that, or calls for the setting up of some independent panel to adjudicate issues regards to the election. But from what stage, I don't know whether that panel it will be responsible to adjudicate from the county level to the national level, and then before they hear those cases, I don't know. All right, those are some of the intricacies that I'm not privy to. Okay, but ideally that has been the concern, and that is what also has been obtaining in a lot of other electoral jurisdiction around Liberia and other parts of the world, where there is a separate adjudication mechanism outside of the NEC own structure to ensure that people feel more acceptable to the to because the thing here is there's a view that the NEC will not largely go against itself. Although I know during my time and during my experience, there were many times where the NEC publicly reprimanded some of the staff and others because they flagrantly violated particular portions of the election law or election guidelines or regulations relative to the conduct of elections. Okay, and in many instances, against its own people. Okay, but the general notion is that people feel that for the process to be more acceptable, they think it should be a body outside of the NEC. And I think the current amendment to the election law kind of look into that as I think so, but I'm not too sure. Henry may be able to provide more information on that. But I think there is a provision within the amendment that calls for the setting up of an independent body to adjudicate issues coming out of the elections.
Yeah, thank you, Firmo. We're still looking forward to Henry coming on the show. We've passed the time that he was supposed to join me, but why I have you without making you commit yourself over plus, I know you can handle it. You remember during the hosting the election central in 2017, something interesting happened, right? The elections, the Supreme Court asked that the voters' roll be cleansed. And Henry came on the program the next day, and I asked him, "So, what is the Election Commission doing to clean the voters' roll?" You remember his answer?
I remember, and I think that I would say I think it got him into trouble. He was
sent to jail.
He was sent to jail by the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Because he said, well, nothing wrong with the voters' roll. So they took it out of proportion. They sent an order the next day, and they had him go to jail for 5 days or something. Even though we thought it was
quite extensive.
It was quite extensive. I don't know. That's why Henry is delaying to come right now. But
the best answer Henry would give is what I have given. That's the past. The NEC is going to conduct the pending elections with a brand new voters roll based on the introduction of the biometric voter registration system. So it's not the use again of the OMR system. It is biometric voter registration. So people should be more assured that the rule is going to be something that will be widely accepted, and some of the issues that were associated with the latter will not be experienced.
I see Henry's trying to come in. He has some difficulty, but we'll keep on going until we can get him in. We've gone more than an hour in our section already. We're also looking forward to getting Your other colleague, Ivan Teach,
Okay.
also will discuss some of the issues, actually a little separate from the election activity, but related in a way relative to the dual citizenship issue and his level of concern. But again, as I said, since I have you, it seems also Zig is still trying to find his way, so we'll be accommodating as they come. We'll put them in. You work with a number of the commissioners at the NEC, and you understand the role of the commissioner because you are an executive at the NEC of Freeman. There has been in the last few months a lot of criticism of the chair lady Davietta Brown, and mostly around procurement issues. Uh, we've been left with the impression that she is awarding contract to people based on peculiar interests, either family or so. In your experience at the NEC, how is procurement done? Does one person have the authority or the ability to say we give the company the right to go and print ballots?
No, I mean that's why you have what they call the board of commissioners. It is something that the board signs off based on. The thing is, you have the secretariat with you have the secretariat that is headed by the executive director and the director of procurement. But then you also have a procurement committee that comprises of technicians, okay, especially subject matter technicians in different areas that a procurement is um, 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 uh, 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 should be catering to. Say, for example, every issue of voter registration materials, equipment, what have you. So you have individuals who understand the peculiarities of those kind of processes. So they are part of it. And my understanding is that the chairperson of the board is also a member. I don't know if that is still if that's still the process. So so it's a committee decision, and then based on that, based on the recommendation, it is then forwarded to the board with all of the reasons as to why company A or company B should be awarded a particular procurement or contract. Okay, and then the board is a plurality. Okay, or sanction the decision, and then it is forwarded to the PPCC to institute a due diligence process. And at the end of the due diligence process, then what happening is that that institution or that business is then awarded the bid, is then awarded the contract to initiate the process. Myself, I've been reading the news. There have been a lot of hula baloo with regards to the process and what have you. Okay, I can say I'm not there. I'm not privy to a lot of the information. It's just something that, for example, I read from online, from newspapers and what have you. But that was the process that I know that happened while I was there, and I think it is still obtaining at the neck.
Okay, like I said, I see Henry trying to come in, and maybe like Liberia is struggling. Yeah,
Sir, are you in Liberia?
No, I'm here. I'm down in Houston, in Texas.
You see it?
Yeah. Well, you thinking my own internet will work better?
I know.
Yeah. So, but Senesi, look, I'm really happy that you can come and share your experience at the Elections Commission with us on these critical issues. I see Henry still trying to get in, but he's maybe he ain't got data. Maybe your people ain't getting mad data. Is that?
No, that man's an esteemed gentleman. You gotta have data. That's for sure.
Okay,
Maybe
we still,
it's just a connection. That's all. That's a connection.
yeah, we keep him we keep his space in the loop. I wanted us to, as we wait for we're waiting for three persons. Zeke said he's using his phone, but we haven't gotten the signal yet. When we get it, we'll bring it in. But one of the things that we're going to be discussing today, we're part of our third segment because we've gone 3/4 of our way, was the recent statement from a sitting senator that one of the legal advisors at the Elections Commission should let go his position. I didn't hear from her the reason for it, except that she was saying he's only a mere uh, a law school graduate. I really don't know what that means. But on Friday, he sent some article in the newspaper uh, and listing his credentials. I hope he was here so he can talk to it. He hasn't shown up yet. But one of the things that I wanted him for here, the main thing was to discuss the question of the dual citizenship issue that he played a major part of it. And I say he referencing Arvin Teach Jalon.
Mhm.
Arvin Teach is you work with him at the Elections Commission, correct?
Yep, I did.
They're hired as he's hired as a lawyer there, right?
Yeah, yes. I mean, when I was there, he was junior legal counsel because by then considered Bleedy. Uh, Bleedy was the senior legal counsel, so that was the position he held up to the time I left.
What I want to do to bring to the public, because this is something that concerns all of us, especially Liberians in the diaspora. There is, and I will not be apologetic. Most Liberian people are not interested in the detailed information that has to do with laws and all that. So people make assumptions. Well, as God will have it, instead of jumping into these topics, we topic by ourselves and putting you Tennessee on the wall. I'm pleased to bring to the panel the young and esteemed Arvin Tish Jalon. Arvin, can you hear us? Hello.
Oh, yes, yes, Greg. Sorry, there's a slow connection there, but I apologize for being late. I had a little bit of difficulty
No, I mean
checking in.
we are glad that you're here. At least you're a little better than South Africa.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been
Yeah.
welcome, man. Really glad that you could join us. As I know you got the outline that I sent you, so that I give you an idea what we wanted to talk about. Okay, so if we I know there are lots of other legal issues going on. If we begin to delve into something that because of legal procedures we cannot delve into, I'll be glad you let us know, so we don't put you in a compromising position. The first thing I would like to do is to have you tell us about yourself. What do you do? What the capacity you have, what experience you have, and then we'll get into the key topics we're going to talk about. So I'll hand it over to you. Welcome.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think you are pausing a little bit. I thought it was this is an oversight. Let me let you know that we have also another panelist on the platform, Senesi Fremont. I know he's your former workmate. You're familiar with him. He has been here discussing elections issues. So, having said that, welcome. Can you tell us a little about yourself? This guy, this Liberia is becoming like South Africa. We lost Avin, eh? Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you are understanding these signals are fairly very weak coming out of Liberia and Africa. We keep on trying. I see even Henry Flomo has been trying forever to come. I'm going to give Tish another shot. I see Tish. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, guys. So let's pick up where we start, man. Tell our audience a little bit about yourself.
Well, thanks. First, thanks for having me on. Um, Alvin Tees Jallo. I'm a lawyer by profession from Papalou County, and I have an international practice in that I practice both in the U.S. and in Liberia as as a lawyer, and I'm currently employed with the Elections Commission of Liberia.
How long have you been with the Elections Commission?
For 7+ years now.
7+ years. You say you practice in the United States. I know I read your article stating your practice in the United States. Can you just elaborate a little bit? In the United States, you're a member of which bar associations in America?
Okay, well, I I graduated law school, 2004 from Cooley Law School, Michigan, and in the U.S. the bar exam is given twice a year in February and June of each year. So, having graduated September of the previous year, '04, I sat for the February exam, which was '05. Past that, I was admitted into the New Jersey bar. Subsequently, I got admitted into the Washington, D.C. bar. And then the following year, which is 2007, I sat for the Pennsylvania bar and got, admitted there as well as an attorney and counselor at law. I worked with the Public Defender Office of Philadelphia. And then I also I had a private practice. I did civil litigation. I represented Liberians and others in immigration proceedings, and I also did some criminal representation at that time. Um, since I have been with the NEC, I have served as its in-house, counsel. I have also made some representation of the Elections Commission as we speak before the lower courts and administrative tribunals.
So you're a member of the Liberian Bar Association.
Yes, I became a member of the Liberian Bar Association. You know how it works. During my time now, prior to my time, I believe that once a person graduated from the law school, he or she did not have to take a bar exam to become, an attorney. But the rule changed, so I was one of those graduates. But at least I had to sit for the exam. So I sat for the exam with the approval of the Supreme Court. And after the result came out, I was successful. And then the Supreme Court issued a mandate to the 16th Judicial Circuit Court, which is in Bapaloo County, and that's my county of origin. And the rule here is that a lawyer has to return to his or her county of origin to be sworn in. So I was sworn in the 16th Judicial Circuit Court on August 15, 2015. And I have since been in good standing with the Liberian Bar Association.
Okay, okay. I tell you, your signal over there, I mean, is good enough that you can hold on with us a little bit, right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, that is why I will defer our discussions because there are two key issues I wanted us to talk about. One, your involvement with the issue of the loss of citizenship clause in the Asian, the alien nationality laws. And I was privy these few days to also read an article you did in the perspective. I think after the legislature passed the new alien naturalization law in which they set some restrictions on Liberians who had dual citizenship. So I wanted us to go into those two things. So before we do that, I got I thought I had Henry. I think I got Henry. Let me bring Henry on, and let's.
Okay.
Henry, can you hear me? Hello, Henry. Yeah, Henry Boyd Flomo is the Chief Communication Officer, the Director of Communications at the NEC. He's been trying to get into the program. We will continue to look out to him. I think he still had a problem. So let get back to you, Tish. Tish, can you hear me, right?
Yes.
Well, as Henry come, we gave him the room. But right now, as part of this program, this segment I thought was very, very important because it has an appeal in the larger Liberian community, especially in the diaspora. I will give a small intro. If I'm wrong, call me out. Uh, as of 2019, we had on the books a legislation, which was an amendment to the Alien and Nationalities Law, clause chapter 22, loss of citizenship clause, where it gave a couple of conditions that if a Liberian citizen falls under, he automatically loses his citizenship. And one of them was that if he took up citizenship in another country. The other one was that if he serves in the military of another country without the explicit approval of the president of Liberia. But one was that if he voluntarily gives his citizenship and whatnot. This law, I think, originated from a conflict in 1955 when President Totman claimed that some people wanted to kill him. And apparently, these guys who were part of that clique was those who were attached to the American wing of the American-Liberian group, vis-a-vis the Barbados group. So they promulgated that law, but it did not get the concurrence of both houses until 1973-74. That law, to the best of my knowledge, has never been enforced because what it does is that I think, well, whoever were trying to promulgate that law did not envisage that there will be a time that hundreds of thousands of Liberians will leave the country and take up citizenship in a foreign country. But if that law was to be implemented, that means it will also deprive Liberians of the properties in Liberia because under Liberian law, only Liberian citizens can own real property. I noticed you were involved with the process to fight that law that emanated in the Supreme Court of Liberia. Can you quickly give us an idea of really what happened? What is it that you guys set out to do, and how did it turn out?
Okay. Good. Thank you. Look, I was several years into my practice, in the state. As I traveled in various Liberian community, you would often hear people say, we want to go back, but the people that started war, they drove us out. Now we won't go back. They are saying that we are not citizens. They want to take our citizenship away from us. So we founded ourselves into a group. We went by the name Non-Resident Liberian. We started off first by creating awareness on the various Liberian websites. We even went and created a petition that Liberian worldwide could sign on. Thousands of Liberians worldwide signed, that petition, including some who are currently lawmakers. So after we did that, we drafted a bill that was introduced in the House of Representatives by Representative Ahmad Sano and Representative Vafole Kamara. And we got the Senate at that time, with Senator Kupi, and then to introduce a companion bill in the Senate. We also wrote President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf at that time, asking her to speak on this issue. So, they were all supported, but the vote was not there. So we also did some work, with the EULA and other folks, Liberian from the diaspora. When we saw that the political process was still because there was resistance. In fact, there was an uneven application of the law. It was being selectively enforced. So, from my legal background, I advised the group, I said, look, this stuff that is being called a law is not recognized by the Constitution at all. And I'll tell you why. First, let's step back. The 1956 Act the 1956 Act that you talked about, it actually had a provision there that says that once a Liberian returned, he or she could reclaim that citizenship by simply appearing before a circuit court. By simply appearing before the circuit court and re-pledge allegiance to Liberia. That was how easy the process was. It was presumed that when a Liberian did one or more of those acts, he or she intended to give up citizenship. But if that was not the presumption, the law allowed that the moment you return to Liberia, all you had to do was to go to a circuit court. In 1973, as you're rightfully saying, that Alien and Nationality Act was passed. And what it says, that any person who obtains a foreign citizenship through naturalization, or, as the other grounds, as you stated, shall automatically lose his or her Liberian citizenship. And you see the game that was played since that time. Was that the only way that Liberian citizens could gain foreign citizenship? Was it only through naturalization? Those who wrote that law knew that Liberians could also gain foreign citizenship by birth. And there was a particular class of Liberians who could afford to send their wives or girlfriend abroad to give birth. But they ensured that that law only targeted those who were born in Liberia, whose parents, for one reason or another, could not born there abroad. They were born them here, and then they sought to penalize them. So from its very beginning, our law was discriminatory. We know you give birth to your child in America, regardless of its status. That child is automatically a Liberian citizen. So do you think that those who passed that act in 1973 was not aware of it? Let's fast forward to 1983, to the draft constitution. Those who serve on the Amos Sawyer's-led committee were aware of that fact. And if you go to the draft that was prepared by them, they had a provision that would apply to both Liberians who acquire foreign citizenship through naturalization or through birth. The draft Article 28 had those provisions there. When it got to Banga, that group deleted the part that applied to Liberians who acquire foreign citizenship by birth. That is a matter of record that cannot be denied. Another game was played. Of course, the vast majority of those who serve, and I'm glad that they rejected it, but you saw how the game was continuously being played. Because at that time, the vast majority of those who were serving as delegates in Banga had children at that time who had acquired foreign citizenship by birth. You know who the chairman is, you know who other members were, so I don't have to call their name. But at the time that they sat there, they had family. So it was selective. And you also saw that after our Civil War years, they did it selectively. You would appear before certain forum, and even though the law provided that you lost, hello?
Go ahead. I'm hearing you.
Sure. Even though the law provided several grounds upon which you could lose citizenship, when there was ever an official inquiry, they never asked, what are someone serving a foreign military? What are you voted in a foreign elections? Or they asked, are you a citizen of another country? So on June 11, 2010, I agreed with the group that I would be the name petition, because there were people who had concern, and we did not want our members to be exposed because of the of some of the defenses that I had. They agreed that I would have been the ideal plaintiff. But at the Supreme Court, that the plaintiff is referred to as the petitioner.
Okay.
So I had some defenses based on the year that I acquired my American citizenship, but I did not tell them because there was also a provision there that said that when you got derivative citizenship, provided that you return to Liberia before the age of majority, you retain your citizenship. But we did not say much. But we knew that the atmosphere was a little toxic at that time. People kept trying to make a boogeyman out of some of their brothers and sisters in the diaspora. So we narrowly stated our petition on constitutional ground, lack of due process. We also put other thing there that my citizenship was protected by Article 27, and that you cannot deprive an Article 27 person, but we left that stuff. And the court decided the case on the due process clause. And guess what? There is a provision in the court ruling that agreed that because when the new constitution came into force January 6, 1986, it has a clause in the Article 95A that says that any law that existed prior to the coming into force of this new constitution would be carried over, provided that it did not violate any provision of the new constitution. That was the carryover clause. And we argue, and the court agreed that that provision of the Alien Nationality Law, the automatic laws provision, did not carry over because it violated. Hence, it was abrogated on January 6, 1986. So at a minimum, since 1986, no person could have been said to have lost citizenship under that provision. Hence, the court issue is ruling on December 23rd, 2019.
December 23rd, 2019.
2019. And of course, there have been several law review articles, international written about it. It was a landmark decision, and it shielded the citizenship of thousands of Liberians worldwide from the politics that was going on at that time. We knew that we knew what would eventually happen. If you cut the root of the tree would eventually die. And ultimately our political leaders saw reason to enact the dual citizenship law, because why the court could say, listen, you cannot automatically deprive someone of his or her citizenship, but the decision whether Liberia give official recognition to dual citizenship is a political decision. So that was not the role of the court. Take the United States for example. Congress has never passed a law giving official recognition of dual citizenship, but since that 1963 decision that says that you cannot automatically deprive someone of citizenship, that flows. So America doesn't pay attention to how many other citizenship you have; they pay attention to theirs. But subsequent to the court ruling in our case, the Ministry of Justice issued a letter, September of 2021, to minister, the foreign minister, informing him of that decision, and essentially letting him know that Liberians who were similarly situated had not lost citizenship as had previously been taught. And I believe it was one of those bases that they started issuing passports to Liberians in the diaspora who were similarly situated.
Thank you for that clarification. I have here with me a copy of that letter from the Minister of Justice, Musa Dean, to the Minister of Foreign Affairs, D. Maxwell Sakemaya, informing him that by having another citizenship does not debar Liberian citizens from getting their passport. But here where I come to now. So it's last year. Last year, the legislature passed a dual citizenship law that, on its face, seemed to be sponsored by EULA and other people. And that dual citizenship law, principally, a few pages, principally say that, okay, if you take citizenship of another country, you will retain your citizenship in Liberia as though it has been taken away, because it has not been. But to say you will retain your citizenship, but you will not be allowed to participate in certain elected positions. You will not be allowed certain appointed positions also. We lost Teach, but I wanted your legal opinion on this in view of where we are, especially considering that Article 20, no, Article 18 of the Liberian Constitution says that maybe I should read it that time. Article 18 of the Liberian Constitution say all Liberian citizens shall have equal opportunity to work and employment regardless of sex, creed, religion, ethnic background, place of origin, or political affiliation, and shall be entitled to equal pay for equal work. Tisha, sorry we lost it for a minute, but I wanted to get back in the sequel to the next topic, which is related to this, but it's a little contradicting. So, having had the Supreme Court make a ruling that, in fact, the loss of citizenship clause in the Alien and Nationality Law was unconstitutional and hence null and void, right? The legislature went ahead last year and passed a new dual citizenship law. In that law, they purport to restrict people who are dual citizens from elected office or from some appointed positions in government. And what I'm mentioning this because there is an article in the Constitution, Article 18, that says that all Liberian citizens should have equal opportunity to work. How do we reconcile that article with this new law? Yeah, Tish, that question was to you. Wait, did you get me?
Yeah, there's there is a delay, coming from your end. It's not
Okay.
too clear.
Okay.
But I think I got the gist of what you're saying. I got the gist of what you're saying. You're talking about the constitutional article that a guarantee equal opportunity employment to every Liberian, and you noted that the dual citizenship law that was passed last year at least exclude a Liberian with dual citizenship from occupying elected position, serving as the Minister of Finance, Minister of Defense, and the central bank governor.
Correct. How do you reconcile that?
But well, look, sometimes, I mean, let's just put it this way: the automatic laws of citizenship clause was enacted in 1973, and we challenged it 40 something years later, and the court agreed. So, I suspect that if somebody believes that portion of the law is a violation of his or her right, there is likely to be a challenge before the court, on those constitutional grounds.
But I understand that. I understand that. So that means you say it's dependent upon somebody challenging in the court. Yeah, but for the sake of argument, right? The Constitution, Article 2, is clear that no laws should be promulgated that are inconsistent with the Constitution. Article 18, is Article 18 reading wrongly relative to the new law? Tish, did you hear me?
No, no. I think I'm sorry to say, but maybe my internet is better than yours because I'm not hearing you too clearly.
No be
And
sorry to
to me,
say. So do you hear me now, right? Tish, would it make sense?
hello?
Yeah, hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, but there, you're coming through with an echo and a delay.
Oh, I see. And that's strange, oh, and I'm coming out of Texas where we got unlimited data. Anyway, in your answer to this concern, you were saying that if a citizen fee aggrieved that their rights have been infringed upon because of the new law, then they have the recourse to take that to the Supreme Court. Uh, I understood that, but I wanted your view as a legal practitioner and a scholar, considering where you've come from. That what did it even make sense to promulgate this new law? That's why we're going to. I'm sorry that you're not getting me. Did it make sense in view of the Article 2 of the Constitution that said that laws should be such that they do not violate the Constitution? Ladies and gentlemen, we I hope that we get our man Henry Ball Flomo, who is the Chief Communication Officer at the Elections Commission. Sadly, it has been difficult for him to come in. We're fortunate to get Tish, having Tish Jalon on board. I think we've had a very rewarding discussion with him. He's still here. The signal is a little weak, but as soon as we can get a stronger signal, we'll let him give us a passing comment as we get close to ending this first segment of our show. I'm also sorry that we could not get audio from Ezekiel Pajibo coming from Johannesburg. In our subsequent broadcast, we'll be glad to bring Ezekiel on a better circumstance so we can discuss his participation in the political affairs in the 80s and his experience with issue around elections. Again, this is Election Central as we go into our subsequent sections every Sunday. We'll continue to raise these concerning issues about our elections in the hope that will create awareness and harmony towards having a free, fair, and transparent elections. I'm going to bring back Senesi, who somehow has been one of the best signals we've had today, and so that we can get a passing, a closing statement from him. Senesi, I'm really glad that you could join us today, and the fact that you are here in the States and with experience in the commission and elections affair in Liberia will be piggybacking on you time and again so that we can be able to get an understanding of some of the issues and inform our people. So I'm up to you. Is there anything you'd like to say? You have the floor.
Yeah. Thank you, Sarah, for affording me the opportunity to be part of the maiden edition of the relaunch of Election Central. Sometime in March, the people of Liberia will begin the first process leading towards the October elections. And that is the registration of eligible Liberians to participate in the process. The general citizens have responsibilities. Their responsibilities, amongst others, are to first get adequate information about where they will be registering, when they will be registering, and what are the basic criteria for their participation in that registration process. It is incumbent upon all Liberians who are 18 years and above to see it as a patriotic and nationalistic duty to be a part of this process and to help the NEC to also spread the word. Because like we used to say at the NEC, elections is everybody's business. Young people, old people, go out and spread the word. Tell your friends, tell your family members that it's important for you to participate in deciding the future of your country. That's the responsibility of the general voting populace. The responsibility of the NEC is to ensure that they create the enabling conditions for people on the during the period of the voter registration to be able to participate in the process in a way that would not frustrate them, so that it turn people away and inhibit their participation in the process. And it is key to the success of the 2017 elections. It's also important that political parties, independent candidates, and those who are aspiring for the votes of citizens to also be a part of this process, including faith-based organizations, civil society organizations, and what have you, to be involved in this first phase of the process, because it serves the purpose of all Liberians if everybody can contribute in their own way to the success of this national voter registration exercise, because that will be the process toward a credible process. So my appeal to all Liberians on our voices, because I know this thing will be something that will be aired later or subsequently, so please get involved in the process, because elections is everybody's business. We want to extol the government of Liberia. We want to extol international partners, as well as the NEC itself, for the preparations that have been made so far, and we implore them to continue to do the best they can with all of the challenges that they are faced with, to ensure that we have credible elections, and the outcome, so that the outcome will be something that will be representative of the will of the people of Liberia. Again, thank you very much for the opportunity, and we look forward to further engagement, especially in different phases of the electoral process as it leads toward 2020 elections. And while we are sitting in our little corner in Frederick, Maryland, USA, we will continue to monitor the process, and please feel free to call upon us anytime so that we can provide our expert opinion as to where we are and what we can do to ensure that it goes well.
Well, Mr. Freeman, thanks a lot. Thanks for contributing your expertise to this program and giving us your time. Today is Super Bowl Sunday.
Yes,
So,
I've been here.
So whatever team you support, I know you're probably supporting the Eagles on that side.
I'm on the East Coast, so you know, I'm the Eagles.
Yeah, wish you guys a good Super Bowl today. Very shortly, we too will set out to join in the celebration game mode. So thank you very much, and have a good Sunday, my brother.
Okay, thank you very much.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is the maiden edition of Election Central. I hope you've enjoyed it. There are a whole lot that we have wished to have brought to the table. Our friend Ezekiel Pachibo out of Johannesburg, we all saw that he had some audio issues, but we were arranged to have him come on subsequent occasions. Henry Boer Flomo, who was very essential for providing real-time information from the Elections Commission, couldn't make it to the show. I see he had a lot of technical problems. We're also happy to have had Avin Teach Jalon to discuss the issue around the alien naturalization law. I know we didn't go too much into the new law that excludes dual citizens from positions in government. But subsequently, we will do that. This is the first of the new CESA edition of Election Central. We intend to improve them. I'm running a banner under there with an email address, Miliora Musi at Prompt Me. We'd like you to send us your views about your impression on the first day. In subsequent occasion, we're going to have at least 30 minutes of interaction with the public through telephone and chat. And we'll be looking forward to creating a vibrant platform to discuss issues about our country. We're going to be discussing public policy issues also in addition to elections. So we look forward to it. Our hope is that on next Sunday, we're going to discuss a little bit about elections, but we're also going to discuss the national health care situation in Liberia. And we are trying to reach out to a practitioner in the healthcare sector who will be part of the program. The notion that we hear from everybody is that the healthcare system is not good in Liberia. We're going to delve into what exactly is Liberia healthcare system, what are the challenges, what are the opportunities. So thank you for joining us. You do have a good Sunday, and those of you in the United States and elsewhere in the world who have interest in American football, I wish you a real good evening as you watch the finals of the American National Football League called the Super Bowl. Thank you very much from Houston, Texas.